Welcome to the Mobile Workforce Podcast, where we sit down and have real conversations with business leaders that have been where you are. During these interviews, we'll dive into what it takes to improve systems and champion processes that maximize performance. Each week, our trailblazing guests share their experiences and understanding of the workforce to help inspire change, challenge our thinking, and share what it takes to successfully travel the road to profitability. Now here's our host, co-founder and chief evangelist of About Time and WorkMax, Mike Merrill.
Hello and welcome to the Mobile Workforce Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Merrill, and today we are sitting down with Zachary Mannheimer, the CEO and founder of Alquist 3D, a 3D home printer, who printed the very first inhabitable home in the United States for the U.S. Habitat for Humanity. And Zachary's also the CEO of Atlas Community Studios, an organization that revitalizes rural communities and also has a goal of attracting talent and businesses into those specific areas. So in today's episode, we're going to talk about 3D printing and how it's impacting the construction industry as a whole, and what it also means to housing, and what it means to have homes that are actually fully 3D printed here in the United States, and how contractors might be able to take advantage of this opportunity that is in front of them. So hello, Zachary, and thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. Welcome.
Good morning. It's a pleasure.
So Zachary, I'm curious, how is 3D printing changing the way that construction projects are being approached today?
3D printing is an advancement for the construction industry as a whole, and that's how we view it. I've learned about 3D printing of structures of buildings about 6 years ago. Have done extensive research into it to get to the point that we're at today. So the first two homes that we printed are an amalgamation of those 6 years of blood, sweat, and tears to get to where we are today. But it's changing the industry. It's a natural advancement, in my opinion. It's the next step that we should be taking from an iterative process, from an additive process, and just in terms of advancement in the industry. We're still building homes the same way we have been building them for the past couple hundred years with hammers and nails. That needs to take a next step. But of course, there are pros and cons to that, and we're dealing with those right now.
Yeah, are you starting to see more of this getting adopted? I mean, we've all heard about it. We see it at, I was just at the World of Concrete recently. We saw them printing buildings there. It was actually very fascinating. People were really, really in love with the idea. But what do you see coming down the track, and how quick do you think this will take a greater hold?
Yeah, when you see the printer in person, it definitely changes your perspective on how this is. It's my background's in theater, and so it's very similar to doing a theatrical production. Once the lights goes on or the printer starts printing, everybody stops and oohs and ahs. It's pretty amazing, and because of that, we actually think that 3D printing is a gateway to get younger people back into the construction trades. For the past 20 to 30 years, that timeline has really decreased the amount of people that are going into the trade. So we're hopeful that this is attracting more people to come back into it, which is great. There's a multiple entry points for that. But we see advancement across the level in every possible way in terms of time savings, labor savings, material savings. And in terms of it being adopted in a general sense of how do we get this commercialized, especially here in America, we're probably, I would expect, 3 to 5 years away from that really being commercialized throughout the country.
Wow, that's amazing. So you printed the very first home in the United States for Habitat for Humanity. So what was that like, and what can you share with us about that experience?
Oh, it was thrilling. What's great about Habitat is their mission aligns perfectly with ours. We didn't start Alquist because we wanted to 3D print homes, as much fun as that is. We started it to solve a problem. The problem is that the housing crisis in America is at a crisis point, and really has been for many years. The costs have to come down if folks are going to be able to afford the homes that they need to live in. We have a economic system here in our country that is based upon building wealth if you can own a home. That has largely not been true for the past 20 years as home prices have continued to rise. So there's two solutions to this problem. There's either companies need to be paying their employees more so they can afford the homes to live in, or we need to drop the cost of housing across the board, or ideally both. Since we can't control what every company does, we looked at how do we drop the cost of housing, and we found 3D printing to be one of the best solutions. It is not the only solution. but it is one of the best solutions to actually get across what we're trying to do. So when you look at Habitat, their mission is to provide affordable housing for those in need. It's nearly identical to what Alquist's mission is as well. So working with them was a perfect partnership, and we expect to do many more homes with them as well.
Yeah, I love that. And I think just like any technology that's out there, a lot of people are hesitant, especially construction's not always on the cutting edge of technology adoption. But what sorts of challenges or things do you think get in the way sometimes of contractors really adopting this and wrapping their arms around it?
Well, the construction industry, you're right, is slower than most industries to advance using new technology. That's true across the board. I can say that almost every general contractor I talk to wants to advance the process, and they're all interested in 3D. And you really need to whittle it down from an educational standpoint. It's not that difficult to grasp once you actually see it. But before you actually see it happening, you need to break it down in terms of a couple pieces. And this is kind of what we were seeing from a code compliance standpoint. When lots of folks were saying, hey, aren't you going to have a problem getting this past code, et cetera? And we really haven't had that problem. It's definitely taking longer than it would for a traditional process, but we haven't seen a ton of pushback. And that's largely because it's concrete. This is not a special concrete in any really way. There are some additives that get put into it to terms of helping it cure slower or faster for sure. But at the end of the day, it's concrete. We've been using concrete around the world for hundreds of years. It's not that different. The major pieces that you have to pay attention to is from a structural standpoint, how do you reinforce it? We are already doing that. Once the code inspectors see it and understand that it's concrete, it's reinforced, we have structural engineers sign off on it, they are incredibly comfortable with the process. The weird part, of course, is that it's being printed by a robot. That's certainly bizarre. But other than that, the material is virtually the same as any other concrete building.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I know the other thing, and this would be typical of any type of concrete construction in this manner, but have you seen advancements with how they're putting conduit in or leaving channels or places for electrical wiring or plumbing? I mean, what sorts of things have they developed to help work through some of these potential challenges?
Those are big challenges that we're looking at right now, and there's only a handful of groups around the world doing this work. I could say one of the leaders doing this is a group called Perry. They're out of Germany. They're also printing here in America. They've been doing it longer than we have, and they have developed ways to add the proper spaces in the walls to add the conduit, to put PVC. Sometimes they're actually putting PVC in as they're printing. I don't think they've perfected that yet. Certainly we haven't. So that's something that's still being looked at right now. But at the end of the day, you treat it like any other concrete wall. You add the conduit and the plumbing and the insulation, either on the exterior or on the interior, of course, for insulation. And what we do is we print two exterior whites of the wall systems that are 2 inches long, or 2 inches wide, and has a 4-inch gap. That's where the insulation goes in. You can add the electrical and plumbing into that. The interior walls can also be printed, or they can be traditional stick built, or they can be prefabricated panel systems. So I don't think anybody has landed on the most efficient process for that just yet, or the right solution. That's something we're hoping to land on by the end of this year. A lot of groups are still working through that.
Yeah, that it is truly fascinating. So when I've seen some of the samples, like at a trade show, for example, obviously there's a lot of setup in the initial stages of getting the printer ready and going through that part of the process. Do you, just from a time perspective, do you have any kind of comparison you can share with just how much more efficient this is from just a time and labor perspective?
Yeah, we know that from a savings standpoint, that right now, where the industry is right now, you're apples to apples, a 3D printed home versus a stick built home, you're going to see savings of about 10 to 15% today. And that's a reduction in labor, a reduction in time, a reduction in cost of materials. And then the biggest piece is the reduction in energy usage. You're going to use about 50% less energy in a 3D printed concrete home versus a stick built home, which is exciting for the homeowner. But that obviously that cost is not on the front end. We believe that savings is going to get up to 30% versus stick built over the next 24 months in a variety of ways. You just touched upon one of the largest issues that the industry faces, and it's terms of the setup and breakdown of the actual machine. These machines, the gantry style machines that we're using, we use a Black Buffalo 3D printing machine right now, and it takes about a day to day and a half to set up and to break down. Everybody knows, including Black Buffalo and all the other companies that are producing these machines, everybody knows that that process needs to come down in terms of time. And really, we need to get this thing set up in a matter of hours. And also that goes to the idea of transportation. So your major costs at the moment are transporting the machine, setting it up, and breaking that down. But in the next 24 months, we expect that time to drop.
I see. So are these options available typically for purchase? And if so, how long does it take to get your hands on something like this? Or can they be rented or leased, so to speak, for a project?
You're asking all the questions that we're asking, and every other group is asking right now. There's a handful of companies worldwide that make these machines that we believe are solid machines that will do well. And there's pros and cons with every single company that makes these machines, because this is really, we're still on the bleeding edge of this industry. There's a lot more to learn. So every company has their own lag time. It could be anywhere from 2 months to a year to receive a printer, depending on the size, availability, location, et cetera. So I would encourage folks to do their research. We've certainly reached out to nearly every company that produces these printers and had lots of conversations with them. We're trying to create a database of the pros and cons of each machine. We've printed with 2 machines so far, and we see pros and cons with both. Nobody's perfected this just yet. It also comes down to the company itself. Are they the right company that's going to help you during the process, when you inevitably encounter challenges and mistakes? That's going to happen, especially right now in the early days of this industry. So you want a company that's going to help you through those processes and be on the ground with you if you need that.
Yeah, I would imagine there's an opportunity here for people, especially in different regions and in their locale, to take advantage and jump on this early if it's something they're interested in. How does somebody get started into even investigating this process as a contractor?
So I'd welcome folks to reach out to us at Alquist. We're happy to. We get these questions constantly. I can tell you, since the Habitat Home came out, we're averaging anywhere from 20 to 100 requests for 3D homes per hour. It's 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 pretty crazy, and that just shows you the incredible need that's out there. There needs to be another 50 companies like ours, especially just in America, let alone globally, to address this problem. In America, we're 3.5 million homes short to reach the threshold that has already been set. Many of those homes need to be affordable, and there just aren't enough companies doing this. We would encourage more companies to get started because we want to commercialize the industry, just like you were asking before. That's the fastest path to doing this, is having more adoption of this technology. And our estimation is that by 2025, many construction companies will probably have some kind of 3D printer, whether that's a robot arm or a gantry or whatever else new comes out, on their job sites, helping to complement some of the work that they're doing. By 2030, it's probably going to replace a good chunk of the work that you see, especially on a residential home. So we're really at the early stages right now, which is exciting. And there's certainly a large amount of risk to this work. But that's the piece that we feel comfortable taking on. So I would encourage more groups to research this, research the companies that are out there making the machines, making the material. But there are very few companies like ours where we don't manufacture machines, we don't make material, we are printers. We use that to make homes for people that need them. We want 50 more companies to do this. We are offering licenses available through Alquist. We're talking to, 30 or 40 groups right now around the world to be doing this type of work. We'd encourage folks to reach out. But it's having the foresight to see where the industry is going to go in the next 10 years and having the courage to jump in.
Now, this is fascinating. And obviously, like you spoke before, your background isn't really in this niche at all, as a whole. So what led you to this, and why does this speak to you and help you be so passionate?
Well, this goes back to the work that I do with our other group, Atlas Community Studios. And so for the past 7 years, in various different forms, myself and that group, we've been doing economic development, creative placemaking, and workforce development in rural communities around the country. So today we're working in 27 different states. The average size community is about 3,000 people. We help these communities revitalize to attract and retain the next generation of workforce, while also helping the folks who are on the ground right now. So that means creating new businesses for their communities, whether those are for-profits or nonprofits, helping them get their hospitals back if they lost them, child care concerns, broadband concerns, basic infrastructure. We do master planning, all of those pieces across the board. It's all about building community. And that's what I've been trying to do in my theatrical career a long time ago when I first got started. I wanted to use theater to build community, to bring different types of people that think differently into the same physical space at the same time to share ideas and build upon those relationships. And we used art as a way to do that. And I still try to do that in my spare time, directing kids shows with my kids' school when COVID's not happening, of course, which we'll see what happens with that. But it was a natural next step to try to bring that same process to community building itself, of how do you help these communities take the next step. The problem of community building is you can't do it if there's nowhere to live. And that's how we arrived at Alquist, is 6 years ago when we really honed in on the fact that housing is at the basic issue of nearly every community, big and small, around the world. We said, wow, we gotta figure out a way to solve this. And that's when I discovered 3D printing. And so that's what led me in this direction. Alquist today is still trying to build community. We do it by using 3D printers to build homes. That we might discover a new process down the line that's more effective. Who knows? But today we get to play with giant robots.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I think of, if I think, 8, 10 years back, before drone technology was really such an important facet of construction. And although it's very different, I think there's a lot of parallelisms between those two comparisons for the industry. And I just, I can't see how the industry could ever go back pre-drone at this point, right?
I agree. That's a really good comparison. Yes.
So, and I just love that you again get back to the root of community, and what a perfect place with a home. So it makes me curious, if you were to ask, maybe you already have, the resident of that first home that you printed, what do you think they love about it the most?
Well, I think just in general, the Stringfield family is just so excited to have a home. April has never been a homeowner; it's been a lifelong dream of hers. So this is her first home that she gets to own, which was such a humble, honoring thrill to be able to hand the keys over to her for her first home that she gets to own. So I imagine, and she's been living in it for about a month now. So I think I don't know if the honeymoon period has worn off just yet. It's going to be interesting to check in with her, which we will, of course, in about 6 months, and say, hey, how's it going? What do you like about it? What do you not like about it, et cetera? There's always room for improvement. So I'll get back to you on what she says. I would imagine today she would just say, hey, I'm really happy to have a home.
So with, obviously this is very new, but there are, as you mentioned earlier, there are countries or locations where this is a lot more common. Where would you say is a shining star of 3D printing of homes today in the world?
The number one area where it's happening the most is in the Middle East, in Dubai. If I'm not mistaken, I think they have more 3D printed structures there than anywhere. Certainly in Germany. Germany's where Perry did the first ever 2-story building, home rather, which is a major accomplishment for them. We're going to be attempting that later this year as well, and we have a lot to learn from them and others. And that's what's really great about this work is, for the most part, not everybody, but for the most part, most of the groups doing this work, we all play nicely in the sandbox together, and we share best practices, and we're learning from each other. And it reminds me very much of how in the 70s, when the internet was first getting created and the work that was being done in California, most of those folks, they all knew each other. And for the most part, they got along until they started really competing with each other. And what's great about this industry that we have is, it's number one, it's global. Number two, we're at the very beginning of this work. And in America, we are, I'd say, 2 to 3 years behind the rest of other areas around the world that have already been doing this longer. But number three, this is a process that has to be collaborative. And we're not seeing competition. We don't view any of the companies that are out there as competitive with us, because it's unlikely that we're going to be competing with them with a piece of land in rural Eastern Oregon that we're going to be printing in with them. So maybe 5 years from now that could exist, but the world's a big place. We're short millions and millions of homes. There's a lot of work to do. So it makes no sense to be fighting over specific areas. And what's great is we're not. everybody is sort of reflected and figured out where their territories are. And we will work with other groups. If we get work in an area that we already know a 3D printer is in, we're going to give them a call. And we're going to say, hey, do you want to do this together? Do you want to do the project yourself? There's more than enough demand out there. And I think having that mentality moving into this and being able to share successes and failures and being honest about it and being open and transparent with how much it costs to do this work. I mean, everybody wants it to be a silver bullet and save so much money in terms of home building, and we believe it will. And it does save a little bit of money today, but it's not the giant cost savings just yet that everybody hopes it will be. So working together, I think we can achieve that.
Yeah, it's very inspiring, and I think even as an industry, construction can learn a lot about your attitude and approach towards this, and this type of collaboration and your passion obviously shines through in everything that I'm hearing and what I've seen and read on this, and it's very exciting. I grew up in construction; it was a big part of my life. I still deal with software for construction, so contractors are my friends and the people that I have the opportunity and the pleasure to work with every day. So I just am so excited for those that are going to be able to be pioneers alongside with you and others like you that have such passion.
That's terrific. I mean, the general contractors, we need them as part of this, and this is something that goes to a workforce development piece of this. The only real knocks on this industry, one is that concrete is far from the most sustainable material and an environmentally friendly material out there, and we know that. And we're hopeful that by next year we're not using concrete anymore, or at least not in the majority of the mix. We're looking into several different type of plant-based material. As well as other materials that are out there like coal ash, fly ash. There's a lot of discussion around graphene. Nobody has really landed on exactly the right thing to use just yet. We're embedded in that research with many other groups, and we're hoping to learn from each other. But by 2023, we're hopeful that our mixes can be, the majority of it can be much more environmentally friendly and carbon negative, not just carbon neutral. There's ways to do that, and we're going deep into that. But the other knock on the industry is that, and I think your contractor friends would have a thing or two to say about this, is that we're replacing human jobs with robots. And there's no way around it. We absolutely are. That is true. And it's why we're called Alquist, though. And this is a harp back to my theatrical world. But Alquist is the name of a character from an obscure 1920s Czechoslovakian play called RUR that no one's ever heard of, unless you do New York Times crosswords on a regular basis. This play was the first piece of literature to ever coin the term robot. This is where robot comes from this play, RUR. And the plot of the play is very similar to, or it started every other science fiction book, movie, play ever. And it's man has manufacturing company, wants to speed it up and be more efficient. He creates robots. Robots learn about their conditions. They don't like their conditions. They revolt. They kill all the humans. Spoiler alert. But there's one character in it named Alquist, who's the main engineer, who believes that humans and robots can coexist together peacefully. And so he's the only human that's spared by the robots. And that's our subtle nod to saying, look, we recognize that this is disrupting the industry in terms of changing a natural advancement. It's like this morning, the recycling truck came to my home to pick up our recycling. And it's got a giant robotic arm that shoots out of the truck and grabs it. And I was thinking about it today because it's -5 where I live in Iowa City. And I was like, gosh, it's got to be horrible to be that recycling person today getting out but they don't get out. The robot arm does it. Now that replaced a job, which is a natural advancement, but still unfortunate that world is changing. And we have to view this the same way. So we believe the way to answer this issue is you have to have a robust workforce development program created within your company to get this going, because there is not a program nationally to teach people how to do 3D concrete printing or 3D additive printing in general. There are not programs that teach that at a large scale using gantry style printers. That's going to change, of course, but we're hoping to lead the way with that. We've got a curriculum that we've created. It's an 8-week certificate program. We're offering it to a number of universities, community colleges, and high schools across the country right now. Wherever we're printing more than 100 homes, we're going to have a program in place to train people to do that. One, selfishly, because we need the talent, we need the job pool of people to pull from. And two, this is how we adapt the industry together. There has to be a real plan moving forward. So we believe that we can create far more jobs than are being replaced by the robot itself. But at the end of the day, no matter what, we're still going to need electricians, plumbers, HVAC, roofers, etc. None of those are going away. It's simply changing the game in terms of how we frame a home.
Yeah, it's truly fantastic, and I love that you're actually walking the walk and really living up to exactly what you're sharing as your mission. Building a community and giving opportunity and something that's obviously new and exciting, and you're heavily engaged in the work of a pioneer in a brand new industry and everything. Like the internet. 30, 40 years ago didn't exist at all. Can we imagine a world without it at this point? And look at the safety, look at the all of the other things that have become an advantage to, like we mentioned, drone technology and other things. So love that you're advancing this human condition in this way and finding a new way and new opportunity to bless lives.
Yeah, I mean, there's pros and cons to all of it. I mean, and you talk about the internet. I'm fully confident right now that my three kids who are home from school upstairs are probably playing crazy amounts of video games right now, going far beyond the hours that I would allow them to play. But they're up there, and we'll deal with that later. But that's a pro and con of the internet, of course, and that's going to be true of any industry with natural advancements. The real question is, how do you adapt to the changes that are thrown your way? I mean, 3D printing is far from a perfect process. We're years away from being able to perfect it and really become experts at it. And so we have to roll with the punches and know that there'll be way more mistakes than there will be successes. Celebrate the successes for sure, but learn from those failures. And failures are, in my opinion, a wonderful thing. Obviously, you want to avoid it, but we learn more from that process than anything else. And this is a mistake that's being made industry-wide right now. Most people are choosing to do their prototyping and testing of 3D printed structures in a controlled environment, in a warehouse. And this technology is built to be on site. Now, your major variable there is weather. And I can tell you firsthand of printing in the July and August 100-degree super humid Virginia weather creates some problems for your material, for the humans doing the work itself, the conditions, and et cetera. And so that leads to a nice, healthy debate of what should be prefab and what should be done on site. And I don't think anybody has the answer to that just yet, including us. We're still working through that. But mistakes are going to be made. If you do all your prototyping in a controlled environment, you are completely unprepared for what the elements are going to give you. And if we at Alquist have done anything right, it's that we were able to say, you know what? Screw it. We're going to go out there. We're going to print a home in the elements without a lot of practice, and we're going to see how well it goes. And the first home, there were a lot of problems with it. The second home, there were also problems, but they were fewer. And we will continue to get better as we go. But it's saying to yourself and your own company or wherever it is that you're trying to do this, I'm going to go and try. We're going to figure it out. We're going to know that we don't have all the answers right off at the top of the goalpost of what we're trying to do. That we're simply going to get out there, we're going to do it, we're going to try it, and we're going to probably fail, and we're going to learn from that, and we're going to get the next success on the next one. And that's really the look of this is, are you comfortable failing in public? Can you learn from that? Can you get past that and do the next thing that's going to make it better and still make it a success? So many of these projects early on are going to be both failures and successes. Hopefully, in the long run, we want more success, of course, and that's the way we're headed. But I'd encourage more people to get out there and try it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So this has just been such an enjoyable conversation and a really fascinating topic. I guess to bring it to a point here at the end of the conversation, if you could share with the audience the thing that you hope they take away from our conversation today, what would that be?
The thing I hope that folks take away from this conversation is courage. Is to go out and just try it, and it's expensive, it's time consuming. All the answers are not out there, but just to go on this track, it took me and my group 6 years to get to the point where we're at today, and We know far less than we need to know about this technology. There's still a lot more to learn. So it's about courage. It's about being open to trying new things, constantly wanting to learn, constantly wanting to collaborate, and understand that this tech is here, in my opinion, to help make the world a better place in a variety of ways, from a community building standpoint, from an environmentally sustainable standpoint, from just a demographic standpoint. If we're going to have a better country where people can understand each other, we have to stop living in only areas where everybody around us thinks the same way. And we need to be able to move around, but we can't do any of that if we don't have homes to live in. So that's the call that we're trying to answer. And I hope folks get inspired and get deep into this work.
Well stated. Just a couple of personal questions. So what's something that you're most grateful for in your professional life that you've learned along this journey?
The thing I'm most grateful for is my wife. Having somebody who lets me go off and do all these crazy things, and is someone I can come home to, or not come home to. I don't leave my home much anymore. And she's working upstairs, but someone that we can have a healthy collaborative discussion about everything that's going. I can share the frustrations and successes with. So I'm by far, more than anything, most thankful for her. And just to my own kids, they inspire me every day. They come up with ideas for what we're doing. They know Dad uses a giant robot to make homes, and my 7-year-old will create all sorts of crazy designs, saying, "Hey, Dad, could you do this? Could you do that?" And it's things that myself and my team have never even thought of before. So that's amazing. And it's my team and the mentors that I have around me that I can be honest with, and we can continue to inspire each other. You have to have that world around you if you're going to be able to do anything. So those are the things I'm most thankful for.
Well, I love that. And the answer doesn't surprise me one bit. You're back to your own community that you started with, the basic unit of society, and that's your family. So that's awesome. Congratulations on doing a great job in your role there.
Thank you.
You bet. And then the very last thing. So Zachary, what if you were to say, you've got this superpower, what would that be?
Oh gosh, that I didn't ever need to sleep. I could just go 24/7, no sleep, and keep moving. That would probably is the first thing that comes to mind, and maybe being able to speed things up so we can help more people faster. Those are always the things that drive me.
Very noble. So what's a superpower that you actually have harnessed and that you've made a reality in your own mind?
A superpower that I've harnessed. The ability to go after projects that we don't have all the answers for, and just saying we're going to jump in, and knowing that we're going to face challenges, but being comfortable with the fact that we're going to figure this out collaboratively. That and the ability to send hundreds of emails very quickly.
That's awesome. Well, I have truly enjoyed this conversation, learned a lot. I've been inspired, and I know that our listeners will be too. So I encourage all of you listeners to please follow Zachary in his journey and help support and encourage him along the way. He's doing a great work, and everything was impossible at one point until somebody did it. And Zachary, you're definitely making that happen and inspiring and leading the rest of us. So thanks again for the discussion today, and looking forward to catching up again down the road in the future.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for joining us today on the Mobile Workforce Podcast, sponsored by About Time Technologies and WorkMax. If you liked the conversation we had today, or were able to learn anything new or helpful, please make sure to follow us on our WorkMax page on LinkedIn and on Instagram at WorkMax_. And subscribe to the show on iTunes or your preferred podcast platform so you will never miss another insightful episode. Also, if you enjoyed the podcast, please leave us a 5-star rating and review and share the show with your friends and colleagues. Your support means the world to us and will allow us to continue providing impactful information with others looking to improve their results in their business and, in turn, their life.